On the call again this Sunday, we have Greg Olsen and his team for Fox. That is a noon kickoff, but Greg now joins us to talk a little bit more about the Vikings and their 10-2 season. You have been lucky enough, at least in our eyes, to have already been to 2 games for the Vikings, 2 super close games, and Kevin O'Connell seems to be a master in those situations. What impresses you the most about KOC when it comes down to those, final minutes of the game?
Yeah, it seems to be, in today's NFL, if you can't figure out a way to manage end of game situations, if you can't manage the clock and timeouts and game strategy and find a way to play your best down the stretch, you're going to have a hard time because there's very few games that you're going to blow somebody out. And there's hopefully for a lot of the good teams, there's very few games where you are going to be blown out. So I think since Kevin has taken over, I mean, you look back to that 2022 season, they were 11-0. Big reason why they won the division. Of course, it ended a little early. We actually called that game against the Giants. But for his first season with Cousins to go 11-0, one-score games, obviously win the division last year, a bit of a regression, had the injuries, multiple quarterbacks, obviously Kirk going down halfway through the season. And now that this year with Sam, they've found it again. And typically, end of game, close one-score games come down to coaching, quarterback, and situational awareness. And I think with the 3 they have going for them this year, it's very similar to what it was a couple years ago. They're very good in those 3 scenarios. And it's not a coincidence why they seem to be able to pull these games out when it looks like it's all for lost.
You mentioned quarterback. Sam Darnold is having quite possibly 3 of his best performances in the last 3 games. As you go throughout the season as a player, as an offense, to see your quarterback really get comfortable and peak right now, what can that do for this offense?
Oh, I mean, it all starts there. I mean, we know this is a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have a quarterback that's capable of playing at a high level, you really don't have a chance to compete for anything of significance in today's NFL. And I think what stands out the most with Sam is he's played his best ball down the stretch of these late games. You talk about winning close games, the overtime against Chicago. He goes 6 for 6 for 90+ yards in overtime after they just gave up an 11-point lead. And everyone's kind of sitting there saying, oh my God, did they blow this game? They give up an onside kick recovery. And now they're fighting their heads off in overtime. And Sam plays his best ball. And then you look at last week down in the 4th quarter, they find themselves down 2 scores, immediately answers, gets it back to within 1 score. And then, of course, after the Arizona field goal to put him down 6, he leads them on another touchdown drive ultimately and completes a touchdown to Aaron Jones. So he's played his best ball down the stretch. A lot of the things that he does well, Kevin O'Connell has built this system to really accentuate and really play to his strengths, protect him from some of the weaknesses. And that's football. Every team has strengths, weaknesses. Every player does. It doesn't matter who you are. And the best teams, the best players and coaches put the system together to deal with that. And you just can't give enough credit to Sam. You can't give enough credit to the job Kevin's done. And they've proven to be a pretty good pairing.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun to watch this season. And there's going to be a really fun game on Sunday that you're on the call for. It's between the Falcons and the Vikings. And, there's not like there's going to be an elephant in the stadium or anything. But what do you see going down in this matchup? How do you see this playing out on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kirk coming back, after the years and the success he had there. And, you mentioned Kevin O'Connell's first year on the job. They win the division and really start the O'Connell era on such a high note. And then last year, of course, to get injured the way he did, and obviously moving on this offseason down to Atlanta. So big story, and really the big, even bigger storyline than just Kirk coming back to Minnesota is for as the trajectory that Minnesota has been on, winning. Atlanta's been on the complete opposite side. The last game we called them, we were actually there. They were 6-3, rolling high, and now they've lost 3 in a row, and they've lost 2 nail biters, and then of course got blown out by Denver. So they're kind of on opposite trajectories. And for a team that looked like they clearly had the NFC South tied up, now finds themselves in a tie, albeit they had the advantage over Tampa in the head-to-head. So this seems like a critical game. After this, we got a month left in the season, and it's over. So this feels, for a lot of reasons, both coming back home, the status of his team, this feels like as big a game as there is for Atlanta and obviously for Kirk Cousins. So you have to imagine Minnesota's going to get their best shot, understanding what's on the line for Atlanta.
Yeah, it's funny you say that it's been so close. That last game was so close. I feel like the Falcons defense had one of their best performances despite the outcome of that game. So what do you think would you like to see from this Vikings team to be able to, I imagine coming out early and being strong throughout the whole thing, but what do you hope to see from them to be able to face such a tough Falcons defense coming off one of their best performances?
Yeah, there's no question. You're exactly right. Last week, that's the Atlanta defense that Raheem Morris has been building towards. They've had their ups and downs. They've had some really good games. They've had some games that have gotten away from them. The pass rush at times for most of the season has been really slow. That really kind of starts when you play the style of Raheem and everything is high shells and keep the ball in front of us in zone coverage. You need to get to the quarterback. You need to get that ball out fast. You need to disrupt the quarterback. And that's what he's been able to do his entire career. The pass rush in Atlanta has been spotty, kind of towards the bottom of the league. Last week came to life. By far their best pass rush game against the Chargers in LA. That's what they need to be. So if I'm Minnesota and I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'm thinking, we've got to protect the passer. We have to find a way to take our shots down the field. And early in the game, if Raheem just gives us underneath, quick completions, be patient. Very similar to last week against that Arizona defense. They were having a hard time throwing the ball over their head, and obviously that's been their calling card for Minnesota all year with Sam, but it might not always be there. And as tempting as it is to throw it up to Justin Jefferson, put up to Addison, you got to pick your spots. And I think that's where Sam's been really good. That's where Kevin's been really good, understanding we want to be a high-paced, fast-scoring offense. We also don't want to be reckless. So I think they've got to be patient early, wait for their shots, and just say, hey, we're going to protect, we're going to hold up, and when the shots are there, we got to hit them. I think offensively, it's a very similar plan going in that they needed to have last week against Arizona.
Yeah, that's just totally that I can definitely see that happening, which I guess is a good thing when you're in this stretch of games, you're trying to come up with plans and you have so much tape out there that you kind of have to attack things that way. While I have you, because you were such a legendary, amazing, successful tight end in the NFL, I really wanted to ask you about what you like about the three-headed monster almost that this Vikings team has at tight end. You've got Josh Oliver, who is back, who is expected to be back this week. Johnny Munt stepping up in his return, which was great to see. And of course, we love having TJ Hawkinson back in the mix.
Yeah, it's funny. Last week when we had a chance to talk to Kevin, he said, he was telling us Josh Oliver is going to be down. He's still not really back from that ankle. And he goes, but for as long as I'm coaching in the NFL, there is a spot on my sideline for Josh Oliver. He's like, he just does so many things. He's so physical. He's so good at the point of attack. So I think it's going to be great having him back. And then, listen, getting Hawkinson back, and we showed it a couple times last week during the broadcast, their ability to use him and Justin Jefferson on the same side, the stress it puts on those zone defenders. Do you stay back under Justin and let Sam just feed the ball underneath to a big, reliable target like TJ? And then all of a sudden you see them jump TJ, and now they're throwing big digs and wraps behind those zone defenders to Justin. It just, the way Kevin can move all those pieces around with the weapons that he has at his disposal, the tight ends are a big part of it. And when they're going to be under center, run game, play action, you've got to be able to block. You've got to be able to hold up at the point of attack, both in the pass protection and in the run game, because that's such a big part of the system of what Kevin wants to implement. And then, of course, to be a threat in the passing game and just another weapon for Sam to work at those medium to down distance, downfield, kind of ranges is just every coach's dream. I'm biased, obviously. But it's a great group. It's as good a skill group as there is in the league. Again, for the style in which they want to play, that tight end unit you mentioned, those three guys are a big reason Kevin can operate and Sam can operate in the manner in which they do, because those guys really help make it go.
Yeah, and they make that run game go too, which is obviously going to be a huge point of emphasis here as we hit the stretch. It's a really tough stretch of games for this Vikings team. They are ending the season against the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Lions, who are all in playoff contention. As a player, you see that at the end, literally every play, every second counts as you fight for the NFC battle. Like, how are you feeling right now, knowing you can control what you can control, but at the end of the day, so much can go on around you?
That's why it's so important that you get every win you can. And whether that win comes in September, October, or in week 18, the difference between being the 1 seed with a bye and being the 6 seed wild card is like razor thin. And I think, you look at the top of the NFC with Detroit's just hanging pace. They seem to win every close game, just similar to Minnesota. And they're trying to catch them not only to win the division, to get a home game, but then obviously still in the picture, only a game back for that number 1 seed, which I know everybody would love to get that bye, get back wild card weekend and watch other people play.
Yeah.
So they'll play head to head, which will go a long way. So you've got to hold serve along the way until you get to that Detroit game. But the Atlanta game is what matters. You can't worry about Detroit. You can't worry about Green Bay. Yes, those are division games, big moments, end of season. They'll still be big when you get there. But guess what? If you don't handle business now and you don't play well against an Atlanta team that's fighting for their lives, those division games at the end of the season, they don't mean as much. So that's what you have to remind yourself of. And it's hard. It's human nature. You get excited. You look ahead. But you really have to anchor and root yourself in the moment, because one loss, one win here or there, when you sit back at the end of the season and you see how the playoff draws, all of a sudden you're on the road against a really good division winner, and one game, 2-3 plays of the entire season, you could be hosting a playoff game, or in Minnesota's case, they could be the number 1 seed with a bye. So it's so close, and that's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, you just think back to that Lions game that you were on the call for. It was just so close. Greg, I know that you haven't been playing for a few years now, and you've been in the booth. I wanted to ask you more of a personal question before I let you go. How has that been for you? How much fun are you having on this side of things?
I really enjoy it. It's something that I've grown into now, doing it my 4th year. I love studying football. I love talking football. I love every Sunday it's the unpredictability of what's going to play out. We sit in here all week and we dissect the game and we plan, okay, here's how it's going to go. Here are the matchups. And then the ball gets kicked off, and just like everybody out there, we think we have a good sense of where it's going to go, and sometimes it does, but oftentimes the game goes where it wants. And it's fun to just kind of jump on and stay with the game and explain it in real time. And, games like last week are a blast. Games like the earlier game we did with Detroit with Detroit and Minnesota, it's just such a blast. So as the next best thing to playing is still being in that stadium. You're living and dying with the ups and downs. I don't have to worry about losing, winning, getting hurt, getting my butt kicked. I've really enjoyed studying the game, staying involved, making relationships with a lot of these coaches that I didn't know before getting into this side. It's been a really fun experience.
That's
and something I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, you're a little less sore on Monday morning, aren't you?
Way less. Way less.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. We love having you on the call for our games as many times as possible this season. Looking forward to hearing you on Sunday alongside Joe Davis and Pam Oliver. Thank you so much, Greg Olsen. Kickoff is at noon on Fox.
Thanks so much.